Hello, Panthers. We're here today to learn all about Google Classroom Basics for teachers. So to get started, we're going to go straight to our Google Classroom. You're going to go to Google and click on your waffle, and your Google Classroom is right here. You have to make sure that you are logged into your account. So your little picture should be here, and when you hover, it should bring up your name and other account information. So click on Classroom and it'll take you right to where you want to go. When you're in your Google Classroom, you see that I already have several Google Classrooms created. A quick tip whenever you're creating different classes that I got from a lady from KDE, she recommended to put the school year in front of what you're naming your Google classes, so that way it'll make it easier to archive and get rid of classes that you don't need anymore. So to create your very first Google Classroom, you're going to click on the plus, and you have two choices: join class or create class. If you are going to be a student in a class, you would want to join the class and get the class code and put that in. But today we're going to create our first class. So click create, and you have to do a class name. I'm going to call this 2021 Mrs. Gentry. And you don't have to include any of this. You can if you want, and then you just click create. So it's created my Google Classroom and went ahead and opened it up for me. So it automatically gives me a picture, but I don't hate it. I just don't I don't love it. So I'm going to go over here and click on select theme. And Google has a lot of these already preloaded for you. I've also been seeing these, they're called banners, popping up on Teachers Pay Teachers. So if you click through and you don't see anything that you really like, you could go to Teachers Pay Teachers, or you could even create your own. There's starting to be some tutorials on places like YouTube if that's something that you'd be interested in. So I went ahead and clicked on this and clicked select class theme. So it changed my theme. Okay, now that we're in here, you see that we have 4 tabs across the top. We have stream, classwork, people, and grades. So your stream is where you post announcements and things like that. You're not necessarily going to post classwork in the stream, but you could definitely put a reminder, like we're going to library on Tuesday, please bring your library books. You could even, whenever you click here to share something with your class, you can say something like, please watch this video before Wednesday, and then add, and it lets you go ahead and automatically add YouTube videos. You could add files if you happen to have a PDF, a link. So sometimes you may want the kids to play a game online, and you could link it here. There's lots of things that you can do in your stream. I also like that you have the option to post to multiple classes at the same time, so you don't have to retype if you happen to have 3 or 4 Google classes that are getting the same information. Also, you're able to choose which students you want to get this reminder in the stream. So if you have a couple of students that always forget their library books, or if you have a couple of students who maybe forgot to turn something in, you could go in and say, please turn in your assignment, and then click and choose who you want to receive that. There's not a list in this Google Classroom because we don't have anybody in this class, but typically it says all students, and then there would be multiple students listed for you to be able to pick and choose who were to get this post. Another great feature, you could click post, but there's also this little arrow. You can schedule it. So if you happen to have time and you want to schedule your post in advance, you can click on schedule and choose another day and time for this to show up in your Google Classroom. So that way on Sunday evening, you could get everything ready and get everything in Google Classroom, and then you don't have to worry about posting things throughout the week. So another great feature, if you have assignments due, they're going to show up here for the kids on this front page. So that way they know, oh, I need to get started on that. I'm going to go ahead and pop over to people because I want to show you. I'm going to discard my changes because it doesn't matter. I'm going to show you how to add people. So you can have co-teachers in your class. It could be an aide. It could be the special ed teacher that comes into your classroom. It could be your other teacher that teaches your grade level. Whoever you want to add as a co-teacher, you would just click on the little person and invite who else you wanted to collaborate with on your Google Classroom. You could also add your students. So I'm going to add Donovan. And when I start typing his name, it pops up down here. I want to invite him. Now, I know that this could get tedious if you have a classroom full of students. So you could also just give your students the class code, and that could be found in your stream here. So if instead of inputting each individual student into your Google Classroom, you can just have everybody log into Google and then post your class code here, and it can, if you click the little square, it'll show it up really big. So if you're in the classroom, you can have everybody just type it in at the same time and save yourself the time of inputting each individual student. When you're creating your classes, you can decide if you want to have just one third grade math class, or if you want to have 3 separate math classes for the 3 different home rooms. You could even have separate separate groups if you do stations and you have different groups doing different work, but you don't necessarily have to do that, and I'll show you why. I just wanted to show really quick with grades. Once you have assignments posted and the students are able to access them and turn them in, this is going to show up with student grades and who's turned in what. So this is a really great feature of Google, so that way you don't have to track down. It keeps track of everything right here for you. Okay, now we're going to go into the classwork tab. This is where you're able to post assignments. So in order to create an assignment, you would click on create, and you see that there are a lot of options. It can get really messy really fast, and so I highly, highly recommend that you use the topic to organize your Google Classroom classwork. And however you want to organize it, however you think is going to work best for you and your students. For the NTI days, I have been posting work in Google Classroom for 4th and 5th grade, and I have organized it by week. So my topics were NTI days 1 through 5, NTI days 6 through 10. So that way the students knew where to look. You could organize it by date. You could organize it by topic. If you're doing a unit on main idea, you could have a topic on main idea, and then the next week you might be working on story sequencing, so that could be your next topic. It's however it makes sense for you and your students, but I definitely recommend doing topics. I'm going to click on the topic and I'm going to write reading activities, and that might be a little bit too generic. Once you get going in your Google Classroom and you are once you get going in your Google Classroom and you see that there's so much going on here in your classwork, then you can go back and rename it. So if, multiplication unit is not enough for you to know exactly what's in there, you can go back and rename. So I'm going to go ahead and add an assignment. In a different video, I'm going to show you how to create assignments. So for this particular video, I'm going to just use something that I already have. So I'm going to click on assignment, and I'm going to title it Phonics Practice. And in your instructions, you can get as detailed as you would like. I'm just going to say, please complete the activity. And then I'm going to click on add and go into my Google Drive. And you'll see in your Google Drive the things that you have done the most recently. It shows up today, yesterday, and if it's something that you have been working on recently, it's going to show up right here at the top. Now, if it's something old, you can go into search. You can look in My Drive. You can upload things. I don't recommend uploading things like PDFs because the students are not going to be able to manipulate those or type on them like you would like them to. And we will learn ways to turn PDFs into activities on future videos. But for now, I'm just going to use this ValTeams Long A activity. I got it on Teachers Pay Teachers. Lots of people are creating them. You can go find them and buy them and use them so that it doesn't take forever for you to create everything for your classroom. This is very important. Students can view file. I want them to do more than view. I want them to use it. But if I click on edit, then every student in the class is going to be able to make changes to the same file. So I go to make a copy for each student. So that way everybody that clicks on the link gets their own copy and is able to manipulate and move things around and change things. And they don't get to see each other's work. You can add multiple things here. So if you want to add a YouTube video for them to watch before they complete this, if you want to add some kind of other game that you would like them to play, if you want to add another Google file from Google Drive, you can add that too. You can add multiple things here. I was just going to add this one activity. And again, you can send it to multiple classes, and you can send it to everybody or just specific students, depending on if everybody needs to be working on the same thing, or if it's an activity that is enriching, or if it's an activity that would be an extension for maybe students that will probably finish early. If you're all done, you would click assign, but Google also will allow you to schedule this out in advance. So if you're able to have all of your activities lined up, you can schedule things as far in advance as you are able to prepare for, and that way you don't have to think so much about it. You could also save it and come back to it if you're like, well, there might be a video, there might be something else. I'm just going to save it, and it'll save it for you. I'm going to schedule this out to post, let's say Friday at 8 o'clock, and click schedule. So when you come back to the classwork page, you see that it is phonics practice grade, and that just tells me that it's ready, but it's not posted until Friday at 8 a.m. Well, I hope, and one last thing, if you need to reorder this, you can absolutely click and drag and drop things around to where it makes the most sense for you. But that's all I have for Google Classroom Basics, and I hope that it was helpful.